with Canadians not being aware of what potential conflicts of interest
What possible conflict would you have, Stephanie? Stephanie, I'm complying with the rules. I'm complying with the rules in advance. We have.
Yeah, he's complying with the rules, but the rules are so flexible, they're elastic. Now, when we come back, I'll explain what's going on today. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back in mere moment.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
We need political change. But we also need to resolve to resist. Yes, thank you for watching today. Unfortunately, we're not going to have Kayla Pollock on the show today. It just didn't work out logistically for her. Monday's not a great day. I probably shouldn't have scheduled for Monday with her, but we're going to be talking about what we're going to be talking about later. And my focus has shifted to where is Pierre Poilievre going right now in terms of being the leader of the Conservative Party and running in a by-election in Alberta. It's, as I've been saying, and I said it first, one of the first people to say it, that this was going to be a by-election fraught with difficulty for Pierre Poilievre because he's running as a federalist in a riding that's deeply divided. And that's a lot of support for the independence movement in that riding. And that's where most of it is in rural Alberta. So it's going to be a difficult time for him. But we'll get to that in a few minutes. Wanted to play one of Kayla Pollock's latest ex-posts. And we were going to play this anyway, but have Kayla comment on it. But we'll do that later in the week, hopefully by Friday.
Was I proven to be medically paralyzed by my COVID vaccine? But now it comes out that the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program is hiding $18.5 million that they don't want you to know what they did. We do know that an ex-employee has said that they had ping pong tables, drinking Fridays, bring your dog to work Fridays, and slushy machines. So that's some of what government spending has been doing in Canada. They offered me medical assistance in dying because they left me quadriplegic for life. I'm paralyzed in a wheelchair. I don't have any money coming from the government who promised that if I took this safe and effective vaccine, that they would take care of me. It's been 3 years, not a penny, not even in line for a penny. I've had my claim in for 3 years. It's still in the intake phase, 3 years later. This is not acceptable. This is Canada. They just want to kill me because they don't have health care. They say we have free health care, come to Canada. They bring in all sorts of people. We don't have free health care. I don't know what people think we have. They literally offered to kill me. Medical assistance in dying. Look it up in Canada. They just said we don't have the resources to help you. This isn't acceptable. I had to crowdfund. If you can help, please do. www.opkayla.ca.
Of course, we support Kayla 100%. And what she says is quite true. There's missing money here in this Vaccine Injury Support Program, VISP. We've already done a couple of shows here about how Global News actually had some courage to go out to criticize the program and to find out exactly how little it's done except provide free drinking afternoons, free drinking Fridays for its employees. Hundreds of millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars for what appears to be a friend of the Liberal Party. And here's what you'll see if you ask for the records of how they've spent their money and what kind of claimants have received money. Big black boxes. It's all been redacted, censored. I mean, you think, my God, how can they continue to get away with this? Now, here's a great post from Dan Messier. Cover-up alert. The Liberals are hiding the details of the $50 million contract they gave to a high-priced consultant to run their vaccine injury support program. This follows a damning Global News investigation that exposed how a firm with no credible experience in healthcare pocketed nearly $35 million while thousands of injury claims remain unresolved. This is a national scandal. Whistleblowers exposed a workplace that resembled a frat house rather than a professional health claims operation. What are the Liberals hiding from Canadians? Well, just more corruption, Dan. And as you continued, this is jaw-dropping. The Liberals gave a $50 million contract to a consultant with no healthcare experience to run Canada's vaccine injury support program. A bombshell Global News investigation reveals massive mismanagement. Nearly $35 million went into the pockets of high-priced consultants. And apparently, there's a connection here to the Liberal Party. Because here's my old friend Andy Lee. Does a lot of great work. It appears the Vaccine Injury Support Program is being administered by RCGT, a consulting firm run by longtime Liberal donor Emilio Imbriglio. He was exposed for conflicts of interest in the past during the robocall scandal. He's donated thousands to the Liberals over the years. And Eva Chipian notes, something is seriously wrong here. The total amount allocated for the Vaccine Injury Support Program was $32,310,000. $310,000 but the cost to administer the program was $20 million, $310,000. Over 60% of the budget allocated for vaccine injuries going toward consultants administering the program. Where have we seen that kind of thing before? And this, of course, is why I wanted Kayla on the show to look into this a little further, because this is beyond stupidity. It's beyond scandal. It's criminal. But this is what we have become accustomed to in this country. Now, I want to talk a bit about Pierre Poilievre and what's he doing in terms of his public image right now. And I've shown a lot of great clips recently of Pierre Poilievre sounding like the Pierre Poilievre who won the Conservative Party leadership contest by talking about freedom. The Pierre Poilievre who had a great interview a couple of years back with the late, great Rex Murphy, where he described the kind of government he wanted as a mind-your-own-business government. That's key word, because that resonates with small c conservatives and small l libertarians. These are the people who are the grassroots of the Conservative Party of Canada. These are the people who donate the money, who do the footwork, who do the volunteer work, who man the phones. These are the people who are most committed.
It's a great place to be, back on the prairies.
Indeed. Well, listen, it does appear that we are heading towards a referendum on Alberta separation. When you are speaking to folks on the ground in the riding that you hope to win, are you telling them that they should remain part of Canada regardless of who is governing? I know you want to make the case for a Conservative government, but that referendum is likely to come sooner rather than later. Would you say to them they should stay even with Mark Carney in power?
They should stay in Canada.
Yes. Are you actively advocating?
Yeah.
For
if you're asking me, absolutely, I'm advocating for a united Canada, and I say that on the doorstep. I say it when I'm in town halls. I say it every time it comes up. I said it at the Calgary Stampede. So I'm not being wishy-washy about this. I'm a Canadian. I'm a Canadian patriot. I'm proud that I grew up in southern Alberta, in Calgary, and I'm a very proud born and bred Albertan. Canada is my country. Canada is the country that the people in Battle River Crowfoot call home. If you look around this community, the communities here, you will see the Canadian flag everywhere. It's on front lawns, it's on doorsteps, it's on people have Canadian flags on their pickup trucks. This is a very patriotic place, and I have, with no hesitation whatsoever, saying that Alberta should be part of Canada. And I should also say, though, the days of telling Alberta to pay up and shut up, to just send more and more money to Ottawa, while the Liberal government there blocks pipelines, destroys the energy sector, disrespects farmers, harms the economy, those days Those days are over. We need to respect what Alberta is contributing. We need pipelines built. We need to repeal C-69, the anti-pipeline law, get rid of the tanker ban, the energy cap, the industrial carbon tax. We need to respect licensed firearms owners and farmers. Those are all things that can happen within a united Canada, and I pledge to be both a champion for fairness for Alberta and a united Canada for our entire country.
Did you see the animosity from that CBC interviewer? Just absolute animosity towards Pierre Poilievre. But he said this from the beginning, that every other doorstep that Pierre Poilievre goes to campaign for support, people are going to be asking him about it. Why are you supporting federalism? Why are you still supporting a united Canada? Why aren't you supporting an independent Alberta? Because there's probably 35 to 50% of the voter base in that constituency is supporting independence. So this is going to be one hell of a difficult by-election for Pierre Poilievre. Everywhere he goes, he's going to be challenged about his federalism. And of course, I could see that from day one here. As soon as I learned he was going to run for a seat in Alberta, I said it's going to coincide with the rise of separatism, with the rise of the yearning for independence in Alberta, and it's going to collide directly with Pierre Poilievre's message. Because this is a guy who's been an Ontario member of parliament for over 20 years. And he's very accustomed to dealing more with federalism as it impacts people in Ontario rather than it impacts people in Alberta. He hasn't lived in Alberta for 2 decades. So of course it's going to be difficult for him. And he's going to PO a lot of people by not apparently standing up strong enough for Alberta. And I'm going to toot my own horn about this anymore, but I could just see this as clear as day, that this was going to be a very difficult problem for Pierre Poilievre throughout this by-election, and it's proving to be. And that interview, of course, is going to satisfy no one. But I have to ask myself, why is he reaching out to the mainstream media to win the affections and the votes of people in Battle River Crowfoot, this massive constituency in Alberta that has gone massively for the Conservative Party for many, many years? In fact, I knew the previous MP there, Kevin Sorensen, very well. He was also winning with 75+% of the vote. It's been a safe riding for multiple decades. For this, one of the safest ridings in Canada. So of course Pierre Poilievre is going to win this. There's no doubt about that. But the question I'm asking is, why is he going to the CBC that wants him turfed as leader? We dealt with this last week. The CBC is actively campaigning to boot Pierre Poilievre out as Conservative leader. They're finding dissent. They're finding the murmuring. They're finding the people who say, well, we don't think Pierre can do it because, he's maybe a little too extreme, maybe a little too conservative. We need somebody maybe like Jason Kenney or Rob Ford. And this is interesting. Here's Marty up north saying what I've been saying for the last couple of months. Unpopular opinion, but I hope he loses the upcoming. I didn't say that. I didn't say this part of it. Upcoming by-election. Nothing would say Alberta is done screwing around more than sending him packing. And beneath that, Mr. Sunshine Baby, Pierre Poilievre is running in a riding where a minimum of 35% voters support Alberta separation. Like I said, it's probably 50 to 55%. That's a little low. If Pierre wants to win this riding, I believe he should publicly state that he will represent the views of those in the riding. What does that mean? That means he will have to support a separatist or an independent agenda if he's truly representing the people in his riding. So it's a conundrum for Pierre Poilievre, day in, day out. It's going to be a constant conundrum for him. But I get back to my question, and I got another little example of where Pierre Poilievre is these days with interviews. So he goes in front of a stampede crowd and he knows it's hardcore conservative supporters. And he says, I want a government that minds its own business. I want a government about freedom. Wonderful. So why is he going to CBC to try to explain his position? CBC, is, as I said, wants to trash him. CBC wants him out because they want Rob Ford, Jason Kenney, or some other red Tory in there as the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. They don't want Pierre Poilievre in there. So stop trying to appease them. Go to the new media like you should have during the election campaign. Go to the podcasters and talk about it because that's where your supporters are getting their news, including so many of you who are watching this show and you're watching other podcasts that are like-minded. And we know that. But let's listen to this. Here he is with Global News in Vancouver. And once again, he looks as uncomfortable as he's ever looked, just like he looked uncomfortable in that interview with CBC as that woman glared at him through the entire discourse. And he did his best. But I'm telling you, that's not going to satisfy a lot of people in that riding or a lot of people in Alberta right now.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Great to be with you.
And welcome to British Columbia
great to be
again.
back.
It's always great having you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the election that we just wrapped up. Mark Carney is our prime minister. Your party is the official opposition. You want to stay on as the Conservative leader. Why should Conservatives give you another chance to go to an election to take on the Liberals?
Well, it's a fair question. You know, obviously we wanted to win. I wanted to win more than anyone because I believe in what we're doing. We made some great gains. We added 2.5 million more votes, 25 more seats, made gains in cities, gains among working class people, blue collar union members, young people, newcomers. But it wasn't enough. So we have to get even better. And we're going to grow our team, grow our approach. And we're going to keep fighting for the things that people believe in and that we, like, for example, we won the debate on the carbon tax, the inflation, housing costs, natural resources, crime, drugs. And we've moved the country a long distance by making those principled arguments. And now we have to continue and have the bigger gains still in the next election so that we can form a government that can fully solve these problems.
Yeah, but you let Mark Carney appear to be taking your positions and win the election. So that's really not cause for celebration. And once again, Pierre Poilievre talks about coming in second, like it's really like coming in first, sort of.
You won the debate, but lost the race, as you know. What did you learn from that you hope to apply moving forward?
Well, I think that we didn't realize that getting, say, 41% of the vote was not going to be enough. It's the biggest share of vote we've had as a party since 1988. But with everything consolidating around the Liberals and a lot of unexpected events coming from down south, we needed to get even more than that. So we have to grow an even bigger tent. We have to advocate for even more people. And I think we need more people to hear the message that we want to bring back the promise that the country had, that it made me, that it made you, that if you work hard, you get a good life in a safe community, in an affordable house under our flag. And that's the message that we have to bring further and to more people so that we can win the next time.
As you full well know, our electoral system is built up largely on cult of personality, and people judge the parties as much as they judge the people. Mm-hmm. Did you feel judged by the electorate? And what can you do to change, to find a way to resonate, to grow the tent more, to resonate with more people?
I mean, it's the job of voters to judge the leader. So, I mean, of course, that's what they do and that's what they should do. And I'm happy, though, that we had 8.3 million people make the judgment that they wanted to vote Conservative. That was the biggest vote count we've ever had. How do we get even more? Like I say, I think people know I'm a fighter. They need to know what I'm fighting for and why I'm fighting for them. That I'm fighting for the people who, the single mom who's got to put water in her kid's milk because she can't afford groceries, or the 35-year-old struggling for a home, or the countless people who tell me they're afraid to go outside because of the catch and release criminal justice system. I think we have to continue to broaden the argument to make it clear to those people that not only are we fighting for them, but that we can solve the problems that the government has created for them, and that we're doing it for the right reason.
We'll get back to this in a second, but here's my observation from somebody who's worked closely with conservative communications in the past, who's been a communications person before and after I was first a journalist. This has got communications written all over. This has got Conservative Party communications written all over it, because he's recycling a lot of the talking points from the election, which didn't work, which really didn't play out very well or as effectively as Pierre Poilievre's own talking points play out with Canadians, not just conservative Canadians, but Canadians who really have a yearning for freedom, for something more than what the Liberals can ever deliver. And this has got the Conservative Party communications department written all over it, and they're doing it again. Pierre Poilievre's running in one of the most conservative ridings in Canada. So why is he on CBC in Global News? There's not going to be a federal election this year. That's quite obvious. It's not going to happen. I think it should happen, but it's not going to happen. Mark Carney is fairly secure, as bad as things are for this country, as mendacious as he's been about his finances. And I'll talk about those at the end of the show, because we're going to be doing a little more analysis and assessment of that. But Pierre Poilievre right now needs to be convincing Conservative Party rank and file that he's their man. Now, there's an old adage in conservative parties, and you know who came up with it? It was Richard Nixon. When he ran successfully in 1968 for the Republican Party presidential nomination, he said, here's the rule, folks. During the nomination, you run to the right. During the election, you run to the center. Now, I think that's a mistake, especially for conservatives. But the communications people are going one step further, and they're telling Pierre Poilievre, run to the center or to the left to defend your leadership, to defend yourself from these daggers coming from the CBC, the red Tories, and the dissenters within the party who want to move it to the left. Don't move to the left. Move to the right. Stay in the right. Stay principled conservative, because that's how you're going to stay leader of the Conservative Party. The farther you move to the left, the more real dissent you're going to create. And that's absolutely imperative that Pierre Poilievre understand that, because he does not need to run to the center or to the left right now. He needs to protect his job as Conservative Party leader of Canada and to get elected in a very strong conservative riding.
Those really key policy pieces, you're right, you force significant change, but those changes are done. We don't know what the next 4 years will present, but considering that we've seen movement on those, what are the next set of issues that you are going to attempt to focus on here to tell voters, look, there is more that we can do to fix the problems that you are feeling?
Look, there are growing problems that the government hasn't addressed. The out-of-control immigration, which continues to grow our population faster than there are homes, jobs, and healthcare to provide. We need to have more people leaving than coming for several years, while our housing market, our job market, and our healthcare system catches up. I think the next one is jobs. Increasing job loss every month is getting worse and worse. The Liberal government is killing jobs with high taxes and bureaucratic delays. A lot of our young people are unable to find work. So we need to unleash job creation with a free enterprise agenda of low taxes, fast permits, more competition. I think public safety will continue to be there. I mean, Mr. Carney has done nothing on crime, nothing to reverse the Liberal policies that caused this problem. And we're the only party promising 3 strikes you're out. That is 3 convictions and no bail, parole, probation, or house arrest. We're the only party that has any solutions on drugs. Liberals still want to keep giving out drugs and effectively legalizing it by non-enforcement. We want to enforce the laws, stop giving out tax-funded drugs, and instead give out treatment. So those are the issues you're going to see us focus on to make life safe, affordable, and secure.
Let's focus in on some of those issues. They
Sure.
matter a lot to British Columbians, as you well know. When we talk about jobs, we recently saw BC Ferries make a decision to send what we believe is more than $1 billion to China.
This is the best part of the interview. And I probably should have put this at the beginning, not the end. But like I said, I was scrambling here. This is not the show I planned. But this is the best part of the interview because it brings Poilievre back to the conservative anti-communist that he really is. And nobody is really questioning what happened for BC to award a contract for BC Ferries. And if you're from BC, like I am, you know how important those ferries are because they go from Nanaimo to Vancouver, from Victoria to Vancouver, like 7-8 times a day. And they're absolutely instrumental. They're absolutely integral to the British Columbia economy and transportation system. And they got China to produce these things? What the hell is wrong with them?
China to build 4 new vessels. At the same time, the federal government's infrastructure bank has provided $1 billion loan, while the transportation minister said no money should go to ferries.
Right.
What do you make of this in terms of prioritizing building ships here in this country?
I think it's a terrible decision, and we, as today, the Conservatives, federal Conservatives, have called for the federal infrastructure bank to cancel the $1 billion loan. We shouldn't be giving federal tax dollars to subsidize jobs overseas. The federal government should only be funding job creation in Canada. And so that's why we've said, let's end this loan. It doesn't have any benefit for the Canadian people. And as a result, the Liberals have betrayed what they promised. They said they were going to create jobs here in Canada. Instead, they're favoring more outsourcing to a country that does not have our labor standards, has slave labor that we can't compete with, at a time when we need to build up our industrial base here in Canada.
Excellent. That is the best part of the interview. And that's once again, that's Pierre Poilievre talking to you, not the Conservative Party communications people that really need to be disassembled. And we need people in there who are truly principled conservatives. But let's have a look at Mark Carney for a sec, because I showed this at the beginning, and I'm going to comment on
With
this.
Canadians not being aware of what potential conflicts of interest
What possible conflict would you have, Stephanie? Stephanie, I'm complying with the rules. I'm complying with the rules in advance.
Yeah, he's complying with the rules. Really? Yeah, he was complying with the rules because he knew the time limit he had. 103 companies he's financially tied to. But what worries me about this? Is the ethics commissioner said he needs to establish a screen between himself and all of these potential conflicts of interest, all of these companies. But that screen is going to be determined and defined by Mark Carney and his cohorts. So the ethics commissioner is saying, okay, there's potentially a problem here. Well, no, there is a problem, not potentially. There's a massive problem here. How are you going to make decisions as the guy in control of Bill C-5, the project's manager now, for everything that goes on in this country in terms of government projects? How are you going to do that and have 103 different corporations in a so-called blind trust? Is there not going to be any conversation going on? Is there not going to be any communication going on behind the scenes quietly? Of course there is. There always has been. But the ethics commissioner is allowing Mark Carney to self-regulate. This is all about you decide how you're going to do this. And that's a recipe for disaster, for catastrophe, and for corruption. It's absolutely stupid. And this should not be allowed to transpire. And it's an outrage that Mark Carney is going to get away with this, especially after Bill C-5, which is giving him complete control over government projects. And I can just see this unraveling very, very quickly. And by the way, to all of the other podcasters out there who are covering the story, congratulations on you. Good work. There's far too much sniping going on within the conservative, small c conservative community right now on X, on YouTube, on every social media platform. Stop sniping against each other. Remember that the enemy is the Liberals under Mark Carney. Stop sniping against people who are not in the Conservative Party of Canada, who might be supporting another party, but ideologically agree with the small c conservative label. Stop attacking people because they're not in the right club. Let's congratulate everybody for working hard for principled conservatism. That's where we need to be in this country. Now, we need a bit of comic relief, and you know who I always turn to for comic relief is the wonderful Mélanie Joly, and she never disappoints me.
Bon, bonjour. Là, vous allez me laisser parler, hein, parce que là, il y a trop de micros ici. C'est bon? Il n'y a pas beaucoup de réactions dans la salle? OK, je sais que... Oui, il y a beaucoup de caméras, mais on est quand même au mois de juillet, hein? Donc, je comprends qu'il fait beau dehors, mais on peut se parler. OK, bon. Hi, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde.
Yeah, there's a little bit more.
Good afternoon, Minister. Your government ran on the promise of being elbows up and standing up for Canadians, but respectfully, that hasn't been happening. So do you think Canadians have been misled by the promises of your government?
I reject that premise. What I'm saying is, of course, we will make sure that we defend our workers. That has been at the core of everything we've been doing. But at the same time, we're dealing with a very unpredictable U.S. administration. We're not the only ones. That's the case for the EU, and I won't talk, of course, for my colleague Joly, but that's the case also for every single country on this planet. So my point is right now is that we need to make sure that we're in action mode, we're in solution mode with other countries, because we're not alone. And so that's why 15 days after the agreement that was signed between Prime Minister Carney and President von der Leyen, we're meeting here in Ottawa. And within the next week, so the end of the summer, I'll be going to Europe, because we need to make sure that our businesses, our industries in Canada, are able to have access to European markets, and same for European companies having access to Canada. And that's our goal. Because while the US will decide to undergo this protectionism path, we know that together we can be in favor of free and open markets, and that's also a really good way to negotiate.
Respectfully, Minister, there was no strong response, though, to, let's say, the increase of steel and aluminum tariffs. There was no strong response to the threat of copper tariffs incoming. Your government had to remove the DST simply just to get back to the negotiating table. So respectfully, what is the government actually doing to negotiate with the U.S. and stand up for Canadians? Well,
you know, you're pretty much asking the same question as your colleagues. My answer is always the same. We won't negotiate in public, and we'll let the Prime Minister negotiate. And, you know, it's a reality that pretty much all world leaders are dealing with right now. And of course, we're coordinating with the EU, we're coordinating with other countries that are negotiating. That's why economic diplomacy is so important right now. But fundamentally, while these negotiations are happening, we need to realign ourselves with trusted partners. And today what you're seeing is a realignment between trusted partners.
Okay, thank you.
What a lot of double talk. Incredible. But she gets away with it because, well, you know, she's effervescent, she's nice personality. But what is she really saying here? Oh, well, just let Mark Carney do this by himself behind closed doors, and it'll all work out. Here's what I'm going to tell you today, folks. Mark Carney wants a crisis with the U.S., with Donald Trump, because it worked for him during the election. It distracted you, and it convinced enough idiots, largely very old baby boomers to vote for him because he created this phony crisis that the United States was going to come in and annex Canada unless Mark Carney stood up to them. Well, what's happened since he was actually elected as prime minister? He hasn't stood up to anybody. He's not standing up to Donald Trump right now. His response was to say, hey, we're going to have an emergency meeting in 10 days. It's a week from today in Halliburton, in Muskoka, cottage country in Ontario. That's an emergency meeting? 10 days later? An emergency meeting means do it today, do it tomorrow at the latest. Now, immediately. If it's emergency, do it now. You don't wait almost 2 weeks to have a meeting. But Mark Carney wants this to brew. He wants this crisis to brew because he wants to use it to distract you again from his financial conflicts of interest. He wants to distract you from the real issue, which is how he has misrepresented himself and his financial interests ever since he reappeared on the Canadian political scene in January. That's why he wants this crisis to brew, to escalate over the next 10 days, over the next week, so he can say, wow, I'm going to save you from Donald Trump and the Americans, and only I can do it. Just like I told you during the election campaign, he's going to use the same line, the same talking points again, and he thinks it's going to work. And if there's enough stupid people out there who really believe him, then it might just work. And he wants the mainstream media to focus on the tariffs, not his financial conflicts of interest. That's what Mark Carney's game plan is all about. Pretty simple. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there who just can't discern how simple it is. And that's what he's all about. It's about fooling you. It's about distracting you. It's about sleight of hand. Mark Carney, the magician. Mark Carney, the money printer. Mark Carney, the guy, the globalist banker who says he's for Canada strong. Mark Carney, the friend of China, who says he's for Canada strong. Mark Carney is very cunning, and he knows what he's doing here. He wants the crisis. And remember what he said during the Liberal leadership campaign. Hey, I'll use the crisis to invoke emergency powers to get my policies through. And that's exactly what he wants to do here. So beware. Watch out. Don't be fooled. And tomorrow, I am going to be attending an appeal court in Ottawa because the Universal Ostrich Farm is in town. And my good friend Katie Passatney, the spokeswoman for that farm, will be on hand. I'll be interviewing her tomorrow at the courtroom to talk about how the appeal is going. And that's, of course, the appeal against the order from the Canada Food Inspection Agency to cull almost 300 ostriches because there may have been an outbreak of avian flu at their farm last November or December, but there sure as hell isn't anything there right now. And this culling order is absurd, and it's horrible, and it's invasion of private property, and it's everything this Liberal government represents. It's emblematic of the invasion of property rights by this Liberal government. So we'll be doing that story tomorrow. Hopefully we can pull it all together before it gets too late. And I do want to have Kayla Pollock on the show by the end of the week, and we'll just have to see how her schedule is. But we got a lot of stuff going on this week with guests, and we're going to move forward. It's going to be a very busy week. Thanks for watching. God bless this country, and Godspeed to all of you. We'll be back again tomorrow, and I think we should be back again by 1 o'clock with the story about what's going on with this appeal.